and we have circled the wagons around Cyndi,
and she's still going to lose because Marion County is a blue county.
Well, it made her campaign for all the county-wides substantial, and I think that's going to prove out she has momentum, and that's what the plan has been all along.
As I've said before, close but no cigar. You guys are going to lose.
What's up, Indy? I'm Ray Steele. Hope you like this video, and please hit subscribe and the notifications button so you don't miss the new stuff. And leave a comment too. Thanks. Today's political lesson, courtesy of our friend Abdul-Hakim Shabazz. If you're going to tweet happy birthday to the U.S. Navy, as the Attorney General did this week, make sure it's U.S. ships that are in the picture and not Russian ships. I suppose it happens, but the fact that it happened to the Attorney General on the same week of the defense of Kanye West. Oh, I know Brian Gaddie's just chomping at the bits to talk about the Attorney General and Kanye West. Brian Gaddie is our Democrat, Jim Merritt, our Republican, and of course the aforementioned Mr. Shabazz from IndyPolitics.org. Well, let's get that out of the way right quick. Todd Rokita, the Attorney General, defending the comments. I believe he was defending the White Lives Matter T-shirt that Kanye West decided to wear for some reason. But of course, Mr. West, or Ye as he is known now. I know you're down with Ye. You used to listen to the music, didn't you, Brian? I'm sure, like I did. But
a long time ago.
Long time. But he then went on to do an interview with Tucker Carlson on Fox, in which he just went full blown, and he did this on Twitter too before he got suspended. Just went into full blown anti-Semitism, and the Attorney General did not retract anything he said on Twitter about Kanye West, which I find very interesting.
Well, Kanye West, I don't know what to say. He's just a poster child that you have to take your medicine if you're supposed to take it. He just makes ridiculous comments. Obviously, these comments he made about DEFCON 3 or something to that sort in this was it a tweet or an Instagram? I think it was an Instagram post because he was banned off Twitter, or I think it was the other way around. But the point is, it was clearly anti-Semitic. I mean, just ridiculous. And then the White Lives Matter shirt. I mean, what is that? What is that all about? The problem is, unfortunately, the history of this country, Black lives have not mattered. That's why we have to have a slogan saying that, because the history of our country has shown, from slavery up to the present, Black lives have not mattered historically in this country. So for him to say, for Kanye or Ye or whatever the heck he calls himself these days, to say something like that, and then compound his insanity with making anti-Semitic remarks, and then Todd Rokita defending what he's did by wearing this shirt, White Lives Matter, and then not even coming out and denouncing his anti-Semitic remarks. Todd Rokita, just another blemish on your very, very checkered record when it comes to what you've done. Clinton Hill, now Todd Rokita, our last two attorney generals in the state have been clowns. It's just really sad.
All right, Mr. Merritt, I'm not going to ask you, first of all, good morning to you. Secondly, I'm not going to ask you to defend Kanye West here. Why would the Attorney General even wade into this? Why does this matter for the Attorney General of Indiana to even comment on it one way or another, do you think?
First, it doesn't matter. I'm not sure what the Attorney General was thinking. He had an okay couple minutes in the past month. And I don't know why he would step into this. There are so many different important parts of being Attorney General that he should be focusing in on it. So I don't really have a good answer for why the Attorney General would get into anything in regards to this issue. And it goes back to, if you're gonna post something on Twitter or some sort of social media, think about it about 5 times, and it doesn't really matter, and it doesn't, and he represents also the Republican Party. He needs to be very careful, and he rarely is.
Think before you click.
Exactly right.
But Abdul, we'll wrap this up with this. That's never how Todd Rokita has operated. Let's just be honest. It seems to me like let's see what gets Fox News's attention, and maybe they'll book me as a guest. And that's what he's going to throw out there. That seems to be the MO, and has been the MO for a long time for the Attorney General.
Here's all I have to say about Todd Rokita and Kanye West or you, whatever. They're both living proof that we don't spend enough money on mental health care in this country. There we go.
Exactly. Exactly.
All right. We will leave it at that. And that's the truth, regardless of what issue we're talking about. Let's move in locally to Marion County now. The Marion County Prosecutor's race. It's hard to believe this election's sneaking up on us. We're just a couple weeks out from it now. And this past week, we at WRTV hosted a debate between Democratic Prosecutor Ryan Mears and Republican challenger Cyndi Carrasco. Hour-long debate, commercial-free, a little bit freewheeling at times. Let's start with Jim Merritt. What did you think of Cyndi Carrasco's performance? Because by all indications, by the polling done courtesy of Abdul's IndyPolitics.org and ARW Strategies, it looked like she really needs to make up some ground between now and Election Day.
I think this debate and really her campaign has been ramping up, gathering momentum, and she painted a picture that was really different than Prosecutor Mears has. Mears said that downtown is safe, and Cyndi obviously says we've got an enormous violent crime problem in Marion County. And I think Cyndi gathered a lot of momentum from her remarks and the to and fro with Prosecutor Mears. And I was very proud of Cyndi and how she represented the Republican Party. And I think she has grown so much in the last 6 or 8 months, even since January. I feel very good about her candidacy, and the Republican Party is behind her in lockstep. And I think they've made that race much closer than we think. And I feel good about Election Day. Downtown is not safe. We do need a prosecutor that will prosecute the law. And I feel very good about Cyndi's candidacy now.
Brian, Mr. Mears tried to make the case that he is a prosecutor who prosecutes the law, but at the same time, that not all crime can be solved by, as he put it, throwing everybody in jail. And he talked about all of the programs that he supports outside of the correction system. And he tried to make that point. Do you think he did that effectively? And also found it interesting that all of a sudden we're seeing a lot of Ryan Mears television ads immediately following this televised debate.
Absolutely. And I think Prosecutor Mears did an excellent job making that point. When you're trying to fight crime, you have to have a holistic approach. You just can't throw everybody in jail. You have to try to get to the root causes of crime, poverty, racism, the historical elements of socioeconomic elements that have kept people back. And again, that's not making an excuse for people engaging in criminal activity. But we can't just say, well, if someone is engaging in criminal activity, we got to find out, why is that happening? What do we do to keep it from happening? Do we invest in our communities, whether it comes to education, after school programs, all the things that can mitigate the deleterious effects of crime, and not to mention keeping people from engaging in crime in the first place. So this is why we Democrats have, in my opinion, and I know I'm biased being a Democrat, we have the best approach to fighting crime, because we just don't just think, all you got to do is just throw everybody in jail and that's the end of it. No, you've got to try to stop people from engaging in crime in the first place. And if those people do break the law and engage in criminal activity and they're caught, of course they should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. You will not find any Democrat that would disagree with that. But we've got to have a holistic approach, and I think Prosecutor Mears did an excellent job in stating that, no doubt about it.
Abdul, I was particularly struck by the closing statements made by both candidates. Ms. Carrasco's was essentially, Ryan Mears has failed Indianapolis, in her opinion. And Ryan Mears, the first thing out of his mouth was, you just heard from someone with basically zero experience in the field in which she's trying to win. So, I mean, how do you think this debate came out? How do you think that changes anything based upon what we know with regards to polling and where this race might be right now?
Well, I was a little bit surprised at Ryan's attack at the end of the debate because at the Northside Shaylin Forum, Ryan said he wasn't going to go negative. He said he was going to, stay positive. And then in the end of the WRTV debate, he attacked Cyndi's record. I was actually surprised he hasn't gone after Cyndi's record as a quote unquote trial lawyer earlier. If you go back to 2006 between then Carl Brizzi and Melina Kennedy. That was one of the big things, that Melina Kennedy had no experience as a prosecutor in court. Now, Cyndi's experience is different than Melina's was, because Cyndi was also the inspector general for the state of Indiana, so she had some criminal authority. But I did think it did get a little testy toward the end there, and it'll be interesting to see what happens now, because early voting's already begun this week. What commercials we see from Ryan Mears? Does he try to stay positive, or does he go on the attack?
So far, the ads have stayed positive. I guess we'll see, and we'll know a little bit better as we get closer to actual election day. But indeed, early voting did get underway this past Wednesday. Speaking of debates, there was another one this week in the Secretary of State's race in Indiana. And Abdul, there was one notable candidate who was missing from that debate. And we knew that Diego Morales was not going to do this debate before, but in particular, that's striking given the sexual misconduct allegations that we have talked about here on Insiders for the last couple of weeks. Haven't heard much about those lately, but we also have heard seemingly very little from Diego Morales's campaign in general, or at least I have. Are you finding the same thing on the journalism trail?
What I've found is that Diego Morales is avoiding the media as much as humanly possible. What he's doing is I think what their strategy is to Indiana's a Republican-leaning state. So their goal is to get as many Republicans that they know will vote for Diego as much as humanly possible. Because you're right, he did not attend the League of Women's Forum debate, but he was at the Warwick County Lincoln Day dinner with about 100 people and some change. Now, granted, those are decisions candidates are going to have to make. But if it were me, if I have the potential to reach thousands of undecided voters and tell my side of the story versus sit in a room of 100 people are going to vote for me, to me it's a no-brainer.
Jim, a couple of weeks ago, when we first talked about these allegations, you talked about how the Morales campaign needed to respond to those. What do you think of their response so far? It's been a couple of weeks, and no, there hasn't been a tremendous amount of talk about it. But I guess there's this feeling, perhaps, that the momentum might be on the Democrats' side in this race, if not the hard numbers based on the polling we saw from Abdul. As Abdul pointed out, there's still a lot of undecided voters, especially in a race like this.
Well, there wasn't a reaction from the Morales campaign. I think they're just channeled into getting as many getting their base out, number one, and two, depending on the the 92 county chairman and the state committee to deliver the election in the way of all Republicans voting, because we know it's a Republican state. We know Indiana is a Republican state, and getting the base out, getting the moderates out can lead Diego to be the next Secretary of State. And I think he will win. I think it was one of those issues where he's dead set on going one-on-one with Republican voters and being everywhere from north to south, east to west, all around the state. And there, Abdul's stellar reporting had two women that came out. There wasn't a third, and there were denials. But he put the blinders on and went directly to the voter, and that is really their strategy. Is getting and there's some apathy out there other than school board races, and depending on getting the
for Desi, there's a lot of enthusiasm for Destiny.
Well, I think if you see, I've been to a lot of events, Brian, a lot of Republican events where you walk into a room of 400 people in Fort Wayne the other night at the Bean dinner, and everybody supported Diego. And so we'll see. That's why we have elections. And Abdul had great reporting, and Diego's putting his nose to the grindstone and getting it done for the next so many weeks.
Well, certainly it looks like at least some of the Republican base will be there. They're turning out for those events, but question is, will they turn out at the polls? And I guess, Brian, the same could be asked of the Democratic base in a midterm year in a state like Indiana, where yes, there are contested races, but say at the national level, where a lot of the attention is going, control of Congress, control of the House and Senate, President Biden's agenda. That's Indiana's not going to have a tremendous amount of impact there. So can Democrats turn out? So go ahead.
And remember, these county-wides and these statewide, They don't have a president that was when back in 2019, the president was polling about 19% approval rating in Marion County, and so a lot of wind is at the Republicans' back this year.
Now, Donald Trump is still on the scene, so it's not like he's just faded away,
But
Jim. So,
well, man, but he's not on the ballot, and that may affect both Republican voters and Democratic voters. I don't know, but yeah, the question is, I mean, Destiny Wells, she's on TV now, Brian, with some ads. What kind of momentum is there, and can somebody like Destiny Wells turn out that Democratic base in big numbers, or in the big numbers that you need to win this race?
absolutely, Destiny can do that. Destiny Wells is an excellent candidate. She's raising money. That's why, and then she's on the air. Obviously, that's why she's raising money. And she's got the Democratic Party, the Indiana Democratic Party is fired up, and we're ready to go. And I know Indiana is a Republican state, but it's not a ruby red. We've already talked about this before, Jim. This is not a hardcore ruby red Republican state. So, I mean, I think the mistaken impression is that Indiana is like Alabama or Mississippi or even Kentucky, and it's not. This is a light shaded red state that can go for us Democrats if we have the right candidate. Destiny Wells is the right candidate. So we are ready to go. We're going to have our base ready. We're going to be able to appeal to those independent voters, a lot of those moderate Republican voters that are not going to be voting Republican because of the Dobbs decision, because of the draconian efforts of the Indiana Republicans at the General Assembly to take away a woman's right to choose. A lot of those suburban women in Hamilton County are not going to go for a candidate like Diego Morales and his checkered past and present sexual assault or harassment allegations. We can't forget about that $40,000 car he bought with campaign donations. Again, I'm trying to figure out if was it the luxury package or the sports package that he opted for when he got that car. He was fired twice from his job from Todd Rokita. We've already talked about what a checkered person he is, and he fired Diego. So I mean, my goodness, Diego Morales is the Richard Murdoch of this campaign. That's what he is. And he will lose. And Indiana does not need to be represented by with an election denier. I forgot he's also an election denier. I mean, there's just so many things with this guy. Sleazy D. I mean, he's got more baggage than an airport. He needs his own baggage claim in his living room. That's how much baggage this guy has.
All right, we'll see.
Can I be any more blunt and direct, guys?
Hey, go ahead, Abdul. What you got?
Just a couple of things here. This race is not going to be decided by the base. It's not going to be decided by the base of Republicans or the base of Democrats, because for the most part, they're about the same and some change when you break down the data. This race is going to be decided by those independent voters, those moderate voters, and those undecided Republicans. Those are going to be the ones. It was the undecided Republicans who elected Joe Donnelly. It was the undecided Republicans who elected Glenda Ritz. And if Destiny Wells wins, it's going to be the undecided Republicans who get her elected. This is not going to be decided by the Democratic base. There just aren't enough Democrats in Indiana for these guys to win. However,
and that's why you see Destiny campaigning in Hamilton County.
Hold for a second, Brian. There are enough, though. However, if you take the Democratic base and mix them together with those independents and moderate Republicans, then I think Destiny Wells definitely has a shot at winning this election in a couple of weeks.
All right, we'll see. Now, speaking of turning out Democrats, all across Indiana, there was a complaint that I saw this week. I believe it was one of the public radio stations, and Abdul had posted a link to this story at indypolitics.org. A complaint from Roger Day. He is the Democrat running in the 4th Congressional District against incumbent Republican Congressman Jim Baird. And let's stipulate that it would be an upset of monumental proportions. I'm trying to be nice here, Abdul. If Roger Day won that race, no disrespect.
I would say my friend was biblical proportions.
No disrespect to Mr. Day. It's just the way that district is drawn. But his complaint was that he's not getting enough support from national Democrats and even state Democrats to help him even be competitive in this district. But I'll start with Jim Merritt. We know that this is how I hate to say the game is played. I don't want to trivialize this, but come election season, political parties have to pick and choose which candidates they are going to support, and they're going to lend that support, that financial support especially, to the candidates with the best chances of winning. And somebody needs to explain this to a lot of candidates, I think, in both parties. But for our argumentative purposes here, Mr. Day in the 4th District.
Yeah, I'm kind of exhibit A with my mayor run in 2019. I chose in 2019 to run for office, for the mayor's office, because I believe in Indianapolis. And it was January 10th on the same election year that I made that decision and made that announcement. You have to believe in yourself. You can't think that you're going to get support from outside your campaign. It's got to be about your ideas, and it's got to be about how you can raise money and get across the finish line. And I think it's a really interesting, kind of weird strategy for the National Democrats to support Trump Republicans in who they think as being weak candidates in different states, and that's how they're going to beat the Republicans with that have produced weak candidates in primary elections. Now, this candidate had to go into this campaign knowing that he wasn't going to get any support. All of the Democrat support was going to go towards the Secretary of State's race. Everybody knew that, and I think you got to understand that you're Don Quixote. You're chasing windmills, and you have to know going in that you're on your own if you're in the 4th district. Congressman Barrett is just an excellent member of Congress, and he knows everybody.
He's a MAGA Republican, so.
But it's a Republican district, and so I feel bad for Mr. Day, but the handwriting was on the wall, and to be crying about this in the first 2 weeks of October is misguided. And get the chin strap buckled and go for the next 3 weeks and do your best you can.
I don't know. Is that a fair complaint from Mr. Day, Brian, that Democrats should be lending more financial support in that district, given that it's probably not a win? I suppose the same argument could be made on a certain level by Tom McDermott, your U.S. Senate candidate, who is not, despite this being perhaps a tighter race than we think, according to the polling that Abdul showed us, he doesn't seem to be he's not on the national Democrats' radar. They're focused on Wisconsin, Nevada, Georgia, places like that.
Well, there's only so many resources to go around. So it's just part of the political game. You can't finance everyone. And that's why a lot of times it's incumbent upon a candidate to go out and raise his or her own money. And they have to be able to show they have the ability to compete in an election. And that way they can be able to raise the money. So you can't just put everything on the state party or the national party and say, hey, it's your fault why I'm not raising enough money. And that's why I can't compete. You have to be able to go out and prove you can raise the money. If you can raise the money, then you can get the attention of the state party and the national party. But I do want to push back on what my good friend Jim said about Congressman Jim Merritt being a great congressman. He is not. He's an extremist MAGA Republican. He wasn't even invited to be on the January 6th commission because he was viewed by Speaker Pelosi as so extreme. And Ginsburg and Liz Cheney were on that commission, but he was not, because he, along with Jim Jordan, were viewed as extremists and election deniers. So he is not a mainstream Republican, and don't you dare paint him as one. I'm going to push back against that.
Outstanding member of Congress.
He is not. He's an extremist. I'm sorry.
He did vote against the certification of the election. Let's leave that
he's
there.
He's an election denier, which means he's an extremist.
Bill, we got about 1 minute here. Well, one, I don't think there's any credence to Mr. Day's argument, but at the same time, this is an argument we hear from somebody, it seems like, every election season.
Yes, and that's what happens when you're a member of the minority party in a congressional district, because the 4th district is like easily 65, 70% Republican. And so if you're a Democrat, or the Republicans for that matter, you're going for at least a district within a 5-point margin of error, hopefully. And because of gerrymandering, you want to go for a competitive district where you can get the best value for your resources. And by the way, Brian, I've known Jim Merritt for years. Jim Merritt is not an extremist. He's a conservative. He gave his arm in Vietnam.
He's an election denier.
Protecting the rest of us. Jim Merritt is not an extremist.
Well, you guys are both on the right. I'm outnumbered here.
Hey, Ray, let me add one thing. I was at a big time fundraiser last night for Cyndi Carrasco. The governor was there, the lieutenant governor was there, Todd Young was there, Senator Todd Young was there. It was an enormous crowd. There's a lot of momentum, and we have circled the wagons around Cyndi, and
she's still going to lose because Marion County is a blue county.
Well, it made her campaign for all the county-wides substantial, and I think that's going to prove out. She has momentum, and that's what the plan has been all along.
As I've said before, close but no cigar. You guys are going to lose.
Where we'll leave it for this week with our insiders, Brian Gaddie, Jim Merritt, Abdul-Hakim Shabazz. It is always a pleasure, gentlemen. We'll talk to you very, very soon.